Welcome to Adventures of a Wallflower. I am your host, JD Morgan. Get yourself a drink, a snack, and possibly a notepad. Season 2 is underway with our first interview. These interviews will be referred to as chat going forward. And AOAW aims to bring you 2 chats per month. And if you haven't checked all episodes in season 1 as yet, I implore you to do so before continuing. So, let's dive right in. Season 2, Episode 1, Jiri Mills and Pabanda. This week, we are joined by Jiri Mills, co-founder of Pabanda, a Jamaican, an Ardenite, an entrepreneur on the loose in Japan with a creative style. But first, let me big up all the Ardenites. Dioduke Kware Optima. I smell high school spirit in here. We're not teens anymore though. Welcome to AOAW, Jiri the Magnificent.
Okay, thank you for having me, Bezrick. It's been a long time. I want to actually do a little talk with you after I saw you did one with our previous Ardenite Andrew Can. So,
Yeah.
I was wondering would you actually have me on the show?
Yes, it's been a time. You have to get things planned out first before I approach someone of your caliber because I've been admiring your work over the years. All right. So,
I have years.
yes. So we're jumping right into our first question, basically. Give us a brief background of yourself, basically the years before moving to Japan.
All right, so I'd say from that, I'd say I'm a 35-year-old Jamaican artist, designer and basketball player and a graduate of the Caribbean School of Architecture, right? In my younger years, I attended Arden High School as well as I spent 1 year at Jamaica College. I mentioned that 1 year at Jamaica College because it did make a big impact on my life because that's actually where my father, my grandfathers went to school. But because we weren't necessarily close as a family,
Yeah.
initially the goal was to go to Arden,
Yeah.
So even it was not necessarily my initial choice, I was glad that I got the opportunity to spend that 1 year at JC.
Okay. Continue the legacy, so to speak.
Right.
Short.
Yeah, even though it was short, you get to experience a lot, a different type of school culture in a sense, Arden has its own type of school spirit, but you can't really come in terms of Jamaica College and Kingston College and those type of schools, they have a different type of
Right. Yeah.
that was,
I forgot. Yeah. We were in so much of a sports school, but more so in the choir and those type of creative arts.
right. So I would say that at Arden is where I developed most of my creative abilities in a sense. Initially, even though I played basketball at Arden, I kind of came into my own at Jamaica College. As I was kind of like given the reins to the actual team itself where I could do what I want to do and stuff like that.
So I had to kind of polish what you already had developed already.
Yeah, basically, exactly. Yeah.
Mhm.
So after that now is when I went to the Caribbean School of Architecture.
Right. And probably a few years passed before you actually moved to Japan, or like right after?
So there was, when I finished school, I had spent like a year or a year and a half in Jamaica before I actually went to Japan.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Cool.
But during that time, I did both graphic design. I was mostly in the design field, working for like a major company in Jamaica. And like freelance, I would do like architectural technician work, right? So I do that on the side and stuff. But I didn't actually work for an architecture firm or anything like that.
Okay. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
So basically, everything you've done so far really, lend a hand in creating the person you are right now.
Yes, I would say, it kind of helped to form my personality and the things that I realize that I like I dislike about life and people in general.
Oh, that's interesting. So, what was your biggest shock when moving to Japan?
My biggest shock was, to To be honest with you, it was like leaving from Jamaica, going to Japan, having experienced like America and other like Caribbean islands as a culture and as a place. Going to Japan, I was expecting more of I want to like a futuristic society. So
Yeah.
for me, when, upon landing here, I was greeted by a culture and a history that is very much intact. So it wasn't so much like a futuristic, like a Star Wars or like you've seen all these like special cars or technologies and stuff like that. I landed in like a rural area. So most of the people, they still have never seen like a black person. You know what I mean? Or
Yeah.
even, I don't even want to say black person, even just a foreigner in a sense. It could be a white person. It could be someone from a different culture. They've never really seen that. So that was one kind of shock moment because I would get a lot of people staring at me,
Yeah. Curiosity.
curiosity. So a lot of people might, I don't really want to get into the racism part too hard, but a lot of people might consider how they act as in a racist context, but it's more along the lines of you are kind of unusual to them, like they've never seen someone like you before. So that
Right.
is why they tend to stare or they tend to act a particular type of way, you know. I would also say, like, so coming here, people are still using stuff like fax machines and payphones. Understand? And
Remind
coming
me
from
which remind me which year was this?
the year I came to Japan would have been about when the end of 2015, I believe.
Okay. I was
Right.
in Trinidad then as well.
Yeah. So yeah, for me that was very interesting seeing fax machines because I myself have never used a fax machine. You understand?
Oh, I've
And
used it I've used it plenty before at work. I think it was just about up to that time where we still were using fax machines. And
okay,
there were some clients that didn't want to accept certain things if it weren't sent via fax.
by a fax, right, right. I mean, even till today we still use fax machines, but it's actually like almost turning. Now is when they're kind of like tweaking into the digital age. They really like to keep like physical paper copies of stuff here, so it's like it's not corrupted by anything.
As they love to preserve the history.
Right, 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 right. So yeah, other differences were that I found in the culture was in Japan it's very strict. It's a very strict culture, right? So people tend to follow like laws and stuff like that. Whereas in Jamaica is a more free society. So you have people that are, you know, if you want to go on the road and go party all night and then call in sick next day to work because you get hungover, you have those type of people there, right? But
Mhm.
in Japan, even if they, let's say they drink a lot, the next day they are going to work, hungover. You understand? But you probably don't see it on their person because they put themselves together, but inside they're still feeling the effects. But
Japan.
regardless of that, they're gonna go to work. You know?
Okay. Yeah, well, you definitely don't see that in the Caribbean culture because in Trinidad, if any excuse to lime, they're not going to work next day. Like you have a holiday on the Thursday, Friday, work not catching them at all.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And stuff like rain and snow, that doesn't stop work over here. You know what I mean? Unless the trains themselves
So,
have stopped,
mhm.
people are gonna go to work. You know?
Okay. Interesting. All right.
Another point I want to bring up though is when it comes to the crime and the safety, which is one reason why I believe I have been here so long, that the feeling that you get, like the feeling that you get is a big feeling of safety. Like you can leave your apartment or your house at 2 p.m. and just go on a walk in the streets and you don't have to be looking over your shoulder or anything like that. You know that you're safe. Then there's a feeling that I feel most people have never like experienced coming from like a Caribbean culture. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just a big like safety feeling, like a weight is lifted off your shoulder. You don't have to worry about your area. You know what I
Okay.
mean?
Interesting.
So,
I actually saw a TikTok, someone who's from Germany.
mhm.
And she used to live in Trinidad. And then she moved back to Germany. And then she's like making a TikTok saying it's like 2 a.m. in the morning and she's a woman, right?
Yeah,
Walking
yeah.
all alone. and she's completely stable. She's not worried about anything.
Yeah, man, it's a different vibe completely this side of the world. I think. Like crime does happen, don't get me wrong, but like just the way how it is set up in terms of how the police and how the system controls everything, they it's very unlikely that you experience any of that. You know what I mean?
I say everywhere has its pros and cons. So before I even talk about your actual endeavor,
Mhm.
I want to take me back to a time you believe, well, you failed, right?
Uh, all right. So I would say I don't think many people knew about this. Only the people that were in school with me would probably know. So there was a time in architecture, I failed the entire year at architecture school. Or I wouldn't say I failed the entire year, but there was a year I had to redo, right?
Mm.
I would say the reasoning behind this was multiple things, but firstly, architecture wasn't necessarily my choice of field to go into. Like I always like art and something like along that line. So I chose architecture because of like my mother's, your parents wanted to do something like Caribbean people always wanted to do, to be a doctor, be status is key, in African and Caribbean culture. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So I applied to architecture, and I don't know if you know, but the Caribbean School of Architecture is the only recognized school for architecture in that area of the world, like in terms of the Caribbean,
Mhm.
right? So it's one location. If you want to be an architect and you live in Trinidad, you have to go to
Okay.
Jamaica to
Don't
do
know that.
architecture school, right? You didn't know that, right? And then they only accept like 40 people from the entire Caribbean to go to that school,
Okay.
right?
Wow.
Right. So I had initially applied, thinking that not sure if I'd get in because I knew the numbers were, limited, but I did get in. So I tried my best through the first couple of years. And then by the third year, I was so burnt out because if you know, architecture is basically like you live at the school,
Uh-huh.
right? Because you're in studio almost 24/7. You know what I mean? So that third year I got burnt out as well as, I would say I was galling it out a bit, in university, you know, as an
Yeah.
athlete and thing, and I was galling it out a bit. So that year, the third year, I had to completely redo. And after that, it's like I had lost connection with a lot of other people that were in my year. So it was almost in the sense of I kind of like felt like really alone,
Uh-huh.
right? And it was at that time that I found out also that probably because of how much work I was putting in, which is something I was not initially used to, I I would have something called like it's a type of anxiety
Right. Yeah.
where it is like not performance anxiety, high functioning anxiety,
Okay.
right? So it's almost along the lines of something where you're used to being super active and like going after goals. So that would be like me playing like basketball or something like that. And because I was not doing that at that time, it would I would not be able to focus on the work as much as I'd want to, right? So after that, I spoke to a lecturer and he was like, "Oh, you stopped playing basketball." So he feels like I probably have this type of anxiety where I need to keep doing basketball or keep doing something like
That you're
to
very
get
interested in, apart from.
right to get that rush in a sense, apart from just the architecture school itself, and it will help both. It will help me in both ways, right? So that at that point in time, I hadn't played basketball like seriously for like 2 or 3 years since that time. But I still playing basketball here and there. So I ended up trying out for the youth basketball team. And that first year, because my grades were so low, I couldn't play for the team. But I could still train, but I couldn't play for the
Right.
team itself.
Right.
Right. So wanting to play for the team and wanting to achieve, I realized that there's a switch where I developed where I could turn, like a super focus in a sense.
Yes.
So that failure of that year, it allowed me to develop like a skill where I learned to switch into a type of focus. And then after being able to make the team and do my work, I kind of just took off from there. So, so
Okay.
I would consider that my main failure in terms of, that situation, but then it kind of led to a positive in a sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's actually good. I might, well, I'll touch on my failure, to be honest. The mere fact that I'm back in Jamaica, not necessarily so much because of my failure, but because of the job that where I was working, it pretty
Mm,
much just wasn't going where it needed to go, and it was basically like dwindling down. Can't stay
mm,
in that forever. And then last year now, I released a book. So each month, each year past now, I'm
mm,
realizing that I'm very interested in the creative side.
mm,
And recently now, my mother told me that when I was little, she said I wanted to do songwriting. I have no
mm.
clue about this. Or else I would have started to plan university and everything towards that.
Right, right, right.
So I would have met this side of me a bit much earlier. I would have been
Mm,
much easier. Like, just as you say, playing basketball helped you achieve certain things. Me going to the gym actually also helped me as well,
right.
especially in my job that I was, because my job was like really, really, really busy 24/7.
Mm-hmm.
And then just a slight touch, I'm actually recently being diagnosed with ADHD, the inattentive.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I feel that anxiety very much.
Right, right, right. You know what I mean? Like, I do think that just being active, it can give people a different level of focus. You know what I mean? So I think doing something active is for everyone.
Where I
You know?
say you have to have something that makes you money, and then you have to have something that you actually like, that is just not a job or work, a nice
Right.
hobby. Balance,
Yeah, I
right?
mean, it would be better. I feel like if you could do your hobby as your job. You know what I mean?
Right.
That way you get the best of both worlds. But in a in a in a real world, it is unlikely that everyone will be able to achieve that. You know what I mean? So yeah.
Yeah. Right. So now, what sparked the idea
Mm.
for your advent endeavor that you started?
All right. So when I initially moved to Japan for about a year or something, I at first I don't feel like I had many challenges in that regard, but it was more so like the outlet that I normally have for like art or design, that was kind of going down because I was just focusing on my actual like job itself. And I wasn't, as I said, I wasn't playing basketball either when I just came to Japan. So I was going back into that same
Oh,
anxious bubble in a sense where I'm not doing my artistic stuff and I'm not doing my sports stuff. So I was just like getting into that whole anxiety thing again, right? So while teaching, I was like, this area is cool and everybody is nice. It's a rural area. I want to move to a more like populated area where it's more exciting and there's more things to do. There's, more people I can talk to that speak English and stuff like that, right? Because
uh,
in the rural area, it's less likely to find people that can understand or speak English,
okay.
right? So then now I I had gotten my company to approve my move to a different area of Japan, relatively close, but a different area. And I kind of wanted to give back to the students that I was teaching. So I had gone around to all the schools that I taught at, and I did like almost like a survey in a sense where I was like, what animal do you like, right? And to my surprise, a lot of the students said a panda. And at that time, I don't think there are many like popular panda characters, right? So I was like, you know what, cool. I am going to design a panda character and then make a sticker and then just give it out before I leave to all the students. So that's how Warpan came about,
Right.
right? And I've given the stickers out. Then I believe I had made, so they have like an app called Line, just like how we have WhatsApp that we use.
Yeah.
They have an app called Line in Asia where most people use in Asia.
Yes.
So that
I've read
I had
about that.
changed that sticker into an actual like Line sticker and put it online where people could like purchase or get or whatever, right? And then someone had seen the character online on like Instagram or something and was like, yo, that character is so cute. If it was on a hat, I would purchase it. So I was like, all right, cool. So from that point, I put it on a hat. And then after I put it on a hat, like a lot of people were like, yo, if you put it on a shirt, that'd be so bad. I'd buy it or whatever, right? So then I put it on a shirt. So then eventually just over time, it kind of like slowly evolved into like a brand by itself where it started with Warpan. Me being a designer, I've always wanted to have like some sort of like clothing brand.
Yeah.
I created like after doing some investigation and stuff on different brands and stuff, I decided to create like a bigger brand called Pabanda, which I could have multiple things under. So Pabanda itself is not a street style brand, but more so overall brand where I can create multiple brands underneath that umbrella in a sense,
Mm.
right? And then that's just how it just organically, in a sense, organically became what it was, you know?
That's very nice. Just from the idea of giving back to the people that you would have interacted with, well, the kids that you would have interacted with, such a lovely idea was birthed. When I saw it, I was amazed. I said, I mean, at the time I was broke. I'm be honest with you, I was broke, so I couldn't purchase no shirts or anything. I believe it
Yeah,
was around just after COVID.
yeah.
I was able to purchase several of the
Yeah, so you got like
jackets,
I
the
remember
hoodie.
because you got the pullover and shit. I remember.
Yeah. So I bought some things for somebody's birthday as well, and I bought my things, the hoodie. Unfortunately, though, I will need to replace that hoodie because I had a night out and it messed up.
Yeah, man. Well, respect for the support, you know. I was surprised when I saw your name pop up. I was like, oh, basic, wow, that's cool, man. And respect for the support.
Yeah.
Everything.
And then, well, I was trying to get some other stuff, but it seemed to have been sold out.
Yeah, so all right, so the thing with how we do our business, because it's not just me, you know. I have a business partner called
Yeah.
Calvin Malcolm, right? And I want to mention him because he puts in a lot of work as well. When our idea behind when we create our pieces is that we want it to be special when you purchase it, right? So we do not recreate anything that we make. So for example, that pullover that you got, we that at least that design itself, we would never create that design again,
Okay.
right? It would probably be another, there'll probably be another hoodie, but just a different design in a sense. So once you purchase something that is limited to you, you're probably going to be the only one that can own that. You know what I
Okay.
mean? And we find that it helps to like keep the value and almost like a kind of like a prestige thing in a sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
To when you purchase, you actually feel special for a longer period of time. You know
I
what I
mean,
mean?
I did feel special wearing that hoodie every time I get a chance to.
Yeah.
The actual story behind that is that that hoodie was in the back of my car, and after a night, spending a night out with friends,
Mm.
I was like, for all the underage people, you might want to skip this, but I was completely wasted, and I was just puking all over the place, and they chose that jacket to use to wipe up stuff.
Oh gosh, man.
Yeah. I mean, they could have just let me vomit it in the car, that easy to clean, but a white jacket, I think
Yeah.
they were jealous because it didn't have any. I think that was,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, that's unfortunate still, though. But yeah, when we make some new ones, we're planning to make some for the end of this year. So we will. I'll make you know. You know.
Yeah, definitely the hoodie. I definitely need the hoodie. Whichever design, it's fine by me. Right. So your next question pretty much is going into your design process, concept to final product.
Okay. So let me tell you my design process. So initially, I would say my design process starts with like a feeling, right? It just comes to like my mental space at the time, one, and most times I would say most times I design things that I think that I would want to wear, right? So number one would be like, I think of something that I'd want to wear. Then I would browse different design ideas. So if I go on Pinterest, I go on Instagram, or, you know, I'm looking at like music videos, certain things that artists are wearing to see if it kind of fits the aesthetic that I'm going for. You know what I mean? Because you always want to find some sort of inspiration from something that's currently happening,
Yeah.
right? And then I would brainstorm that idea, think about like different designs, what I want to put on it, what material I want to use, and like the colors that are going on that would match that type of design aesthetic, right? Because for me, material and the colors are important. right? Not just the design itself, right?
Um,
I always try to get the best quality that I can. So I mean, it can be difficult because, when you go to different suppliers and stuff, you don't know what you're getting. As you know, I know you've seen the whole like tariff situation going on with Trump. So you
yes.
see all the Chinese people coming out saying that, Louis Vuitton and Nike, they're all made in China anyways, right?
Right.
So most of my orders, I would say, are made in China. And then I get them sent to Japan, and then, that's how we do it from there. So after that, now we have a design that we make. We get it made by the actual supplier, right? So we get a sample, and we test that sample by posting it on like social media, asking friends what they think about the actual design itself. And then after that feedback that we get, we then decide if there's anything that we need to tweak or we need to change, right? And then after we get that information, we then decide to refine certain things. Like if someone thinks that the design is like, so if you can see my hat right here, so that the
Right.
one
All
race,
right. Yes.
if it's too big or if it's too small or what people think about it. So like even this one, initially I thought the one race was too big, right?
Yeah.
But then someone said to me, oh, they actually like the size of the one race. So I don't just try and make things based on how I think it will work. You have to give the people what they want. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? So if people want something that is a lot bigger, then you kind of tailor it that way where you are comfortable and they are comfortable. So you find like a middle ground, right?
Right. You're very open to accepting criticism and
Right,
then
right,
moving forward. Right.
right.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So after that, then we create the final design and then do the distribution of the products. And as I said, we always try and limit the products currently 30 to 50 pieces. So probably in the future, it might increase. But for where we are right now, we find that 30 to 50 is a good range to keep it, you know.
Okay. Right. Yeah, yeah. Well, I do hope things get much larger. So not too big, but just enough where you can handle it growing a steady growth. Just or next thing we could probably speak about how you handle a creative block.
So for creative block, I usually do not think about the thing too much. So if I'm having a creative block, I tend to go into some other aspect of life. Like I decide to play basketball or go and play like games or something, or I go out and lime as you would call it. You know what I mean? And then if it comes down to the point where that does not work and I cannot figure out an idea, I usually just communicate with my business partner, who's also very like fashion forward, who's with the trends and everything. So he always has different ideas, different options, and different like people that I can look at to get inspiration from. And after speaking to him, usually my mind, if it was not clear before, usually after speaking to him, I get a certain type of like clarity or a direction that I can move in towards. You know what I mean? So that's how I would say I tend to deal with creative block.
Okay. That's good. I mean, it's good that you actually have a partner who you can always bounce ideas from and so forth. I myself recently went through a creative block, especially with my writing.
Mm.
For like 3 weeks, I wasn't doing no writing. I was supposed to even record an episode of this podcast. I didn't even do that.
Sure.
Yeah. But I think
I mean, I feel like I don't know if I want to say I feel like words are more difficult than like actual creating images, but because I think with word, you don't want to be too repetitive with things. It's so much more difficult I feel when it comes to writing than it comes to actual creating something visually, if you get what I'm saying. Because even when it comes to like the comic aspect, when I can, for me personally, I can finish doing a artwork relatively in a good time. But when it comes down to actual dialogue in the script, it comes down to a lot more like thinking of what you want them to say and how you want the person to feel. So
Right.
creative block in writing is definitely
Yeah,
difficult.
I think at the end, it also depends on what else is going on in your life.
Right.
Because the beginning of this year was quite a transition period that there's something I needed to decide on, and I
Hmm.
had no idea what to do. I still don't know what to do, but the first move is, well, I'm in Jamaica now,
Yeah.
and I'm pushing my podcast more. My first interview which I've been thinking about quite a while because even when Andrew interviewed me, I thought to myself, I need to interview you.
Okay.
Yeah, because I've said it multiple times. I try to support other people. I see you doing good, I will support you in whichever way that I can. Might not be monetary, I might just share whatever you post. Yes, and to those listening, that's a very simple way you can help support your friends, family, and well, strangers. Just share their work. Somebody else that you may know may like what they're producing, right? That's all it is to it.
That's factual, and people will really appreciate that, even if it's a share or a like or anything like that. It doesn't actually have to be a physical like purchase or anything like that, you know?
Yeah,
Because for me, like even I would say where I am at now, it's more of I really would prefer to build like a culture, to build like a community versus just selling items because I'm not necessarily money hungry, you know what I mean?
yeah.
So
I'm not gonna lie, I could do with some more money, but yes, but in a sense, that's not the reason why I started writing. It more so because I was going through a moment of time, anxiety, depression, and I wanted to share it with others, right? To say that, there are other people that go through this stuff, so maybe you can find my way or some other way, but at least you'll get some motivation or some understanding to approach whatever you're going through better, right?
and that makes a lot of sense, you know?
Yeah. What else? Right. So let's just say first, what is your website and where we could actually find you? Let's get that out of the way before we ask any more questions.
All right. So first, the brand name is Pabanda, right? So if you go on to www.pabanda.com, that will take you directly to the website where you can purchase items. Yeah. For the time being though, or most of our items are sold out. We will be not re-releasing, but we pre-release our one race hats and our bucket hats I wouldn't say late last winter, so around December, November that time, we had pre-released some stuff for some people to purchase. So that was winter, so hats and stuff are not necessarily popular at that time.
Yeah.
So we will start the actual official release in in June for summer. So you can look for promotions like in May and June for the actual hats on the website itself. To be clear, the company is co-founded by me, myself, Jiri Mills, and Calvin Malcolm,
Mhm.
and we are a lifestyle clothing brand. We focus on the creation of clothing and lifestyle items and content that people can connect with under the belief of one race. You know what I mean? We have our slogan is it's a Japanese slogan called Jinrui Mino Onaji, and it's basically like saying we're all one people. We're all one race, right? So it's the human race on a whole and not just individual people, right?
Okay.
So the brand itself is supposed to celebrate diversity, and just because everyone is diverse, it actually makes us all the same in a sense. Because everyone is diverse, makes us the same. Yeah.
All right. And
Um,
you just to mention, you did some collaborations as well.
right. So we did our first collaboration was with Beres Hammond. Those shirts sold out relatively quickly. Then our second collaboration was with, I don't know if you know Janga's Sports Bar and Grill in Jamaica as well.
Yeah, been to
It's a
there.
relatively popular sports bar. We have other collaborations that we are working on in the pipeline. But our general idea is that we have our world with Warpan,
Mhm.
and once we do a collaboration, we will try and get that person in the actual comic itself. So this is just like a little hint. If you do see someone in the comic, there might be a collaboration coming up. Just a little hint.
Okay.
Maybe you might see a collaboration coming up.
Very much like that. Yeah, that's very nice.
That's our socials. You can catch us on warpanofficial@gmail.com. That's where we post most of our content daily. We have a website. We have another social handle called Pabanda. We are Pabanda, right? We post most of our clothing items on that side and our lifestyle. items on that side. Yeah. You can email us at warpanofficial@gmail.com as well as pabandaco@gmail.com.
Okay. And just to know, listeners, I will definitely have this on my page so that you can go and follow him, purchase some apparel, some hats, and yeah, thanks for thanks for being on this podcast, Jiri.
Yeah, man, I'm happy to, be here and talk to you, brother. I've been
Yeah.
seeing you doing stuff as well, so enjoying looking at your poems and everything. And I do really hope, wish the best for you and thing. Uh, so looking forward to your next book as well.
Yes. We will talk off here because definitely, there's some collaboration to be had in the future.
Yeah, man, you know what I'm saying?
All right. Cool. And for this week's Poetry Corner, we have a poem entitled Pui Dreams and Rosella Reflections. This is only but an excerpt. Hit me with spring bliss, ignorance is bliss. Bloom through fall, waiting for autumn's call. Purple hues, sunset views, and sky blues. Pink Pui reminds me of pink Rosella. And if you're just joining me on my journey, thank you. Be sure to collect a copy of The Silent Love, a collection of thoughts and imagery conveyed through words. Do note, the book is available in Trinidad at Scribbles and Quills, in Chaguanas, the Bar Bookshop in Couva, Metropolitan Bookstore in Port of Spain, the JD Collection in Port of Spain, and Shock and Stock Bookseller, The Falls at West Malls. And internationally, it is available on the Balboa Press Bookstore, Amazon, Apple Books, Barnes & Noble, Everand, and other major online sellers. Do note, only the softcover is available in Trinidad, and softcover, hardcover, and ebook is available online. Be sure to get your copy. And for my other socials, you can check out my website at www.jd-morgan.com and Instagram page with handle j.d.morgan _writes. As well as on Facebook, you could search for the profile j.d.morgan. And I am also on TikTok as j.d.morgan_writes. And if you've read my book, kindly go to Goodreads and search for my author name or the book itself and give a review, a very honest review. Thank you. Now, please make sure and like, subscribe, and share my podcast with your friends and family. And join me on another episode next week.